Good afternoon. My name is Dan Diadio. I'm the director of the Charter Oak Brass Band, and I welcome you here to this beautiful hall to play in. Every year that we have played here, I've just revered the sound that we get in this room, and also the wonderful audience that comes every year to this performance. And we truly enjoy and really look forward to this performance as the year progresses. It's my hope that you will find something in this program, if not all of it, but the way the program is built from the tradition of the British style brass band, that there will be something that will speak to you today. And it's my hope that you will leave in some way changed. Our first piece by Paul Lovett Cooper is a work that was inspired by the composer's trip to the United States. He's an English composer. He was the resident composer of Black Dyke Band in England, and went to a bird sanctuary where he saw an eagle flying, and he was so inspired by it that his composition following the trip was one of the compositions following the trip was dedicated to this glory of this bird. So I hope you enjoyed our opener. As someone born, I'm a person who grew up in the 60s and 70s. The first time I heard this next song was, if some of you remember, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, right? Right, and I heard this. What is this glorious sound? I had no idea that this could be such a tune. And of course, it was no song by Keith Emerson or the band, but it was an Anglican hymn, and Philip Sparke has done a wonderful arrangement of Jerusalem. during the year, we have soloists that join us for our performances. Earlier this year, we had Matt Russo, a fine trombonist, professor of trombone at the University of Connecticut and at the Choate School, and a wonderful, wonderful symphonic player. We had him join us in the fall. And then often we have members of the band who will also perform with our ensemble. And this is what we will have here. Pete Olson is a fine trumpet player, but then he caught the tenor horn bug. It's probably true. He's the only, no. But he plays it so beautifully. And so I decided to find a tenor horn, and I don't believe that we've had an actual tenor horn soloist since I've been with the ensemble. So this is a first for us. And Pete would like to talk a little bit about the piece.
Thank you, Dan. Is it on? Everyone can hear me? A little closer? Thank you. I'll do that. First of all, I would like to express my thanks to Dan, again, for finding this piece of work for us to play for you today. I have greatly enjoyed preparing and rehearsing this work, and would like to express my thanks as well to everyone in the band for their efforts this spring. Each rehearsal has been a learning experience for me, and it's been extremely meaningful. I would like to share a few reflections on this piece as I've come to experience it. Sunday in the Park. For me, the piece conjures vivid images. The sun rising on a summer day, fresh air, a beautiful park, perhaps Elizabeth Park with its rose gardens, an idyllic pond. Throw in a babbling brook, flowers and trees in bloom, a flurry of activity, birds chirping, butterflies, honeybees, and squirrels, nature at its finest. Children running about, doing cartwheels, flying kites, and playing games. Families enjoying a picnic, dancing and singing to music. More serene moments, watching clouds float by, taking a relaxing stroll, breathing the fresh air. Later in the day, a lone butterfly flitting by, landing on a single flower, then another, and finally remaining calm on a third. The work closes peacefully with the return of the opening statement, perhaps as the sun is setting, a reminder of a day well spent, our hearts filled with beautiful memories. I hope you enjoy Sunday in the Park by Philip Spark.
I know I've seen many of you here before, and it's so wonderful to have people that come back to concerts and always, I see familiar faces when I come to Bloomfield Congregational. And I always talk about the difference between what a British-style brass band is. And so for those of you who know this, please let this be a review. And for those of you who don't know it, please enjoy the differences between the British-style brass band and American brass band, or American band. Okay? If you'll notice, every instrument here is either a brass or a percussion instrument. Somehow the percussionists get a little shortchanged here because it's considered a brass band, but we have all these wonderful colors that the percussionists provide. Both with the sound that develops from the bass with the timpani, and all the colors that are provided with the drums and the keyboard. It adds a color to the homogeneous sound of the brass choir. Now, if I can liken this maybe to that of an orchestra, and especially that of a string section, yes? So the cornets are basically the violin section. We actually have five solo cornets, and we have a ripieno cornet who serves as kind of like a person who doubles with the flugelhorn and the E flat cornet, which is a little smaller instrument. And so that instrument adds very much like the percussion, this luster of sound that is over the top of that pervades over the top of the cornet section. And then we also have second and third cornets who provide a sense of good support for the solo cornet section. So we move ourselves onward, and we have the middle voices of the ensemble, and that is the tenor horn. You just heard Pete play the tenor horn. This would be the equivalent of what the French horn would be, and they play that sound, right? You'll notice they look very much like either a baritone or euphonium, but just a little smaller, obviously, yes? Right? And then a flugelhorn, which is actually, yes, and many of you have heard this in jazz settings and even in classical settings. There's a soloistic component to the flugelhorn part, and it kind of is part of the sound that melds between the cornets and the tenor horns. Now, as we work ourselves around, we have the baritone horns that are right here. If you'll notice, they look very similar to the tenor horns, but they're a little bit bigger, right? The other thing to notice, and if you're a musician, you know about playing, all of these instruments are either keyed in B flat or in E flat, which actually makes it a little bit easier to tune than, say, in other groups where they have C instruments and F instruments and all sorts of different instruments. I find it to be much more of a joy to kind of put this together in many ways, because the tunings are very related to each other. Now, we also have the euphoniums, which I consider them like the cello section. And you'll hear solo parts from the euphoniums. You'll notice that the euphonium, many players play euphonium or baritone, right? Many of them will play both instruments. The euphonium is a little bit bigger than that of, when I say bigger, it's a fuller instrument. Now, the trombones, they provide this regal sound. Most of our instruments here are all conical, which means they start spreading out from the mouthpiece gradually to the end of the bell, right? But the trombones are a cylindrical instrument. They are pretty much the same size all the way through, but then they flare out at the end, so they have more of a cylindrical sound. Now, the beauty about the trombone is that they can have a blend that is like, when they play with each other, it is synonymous in tone color, right? But then they can add just a little bit of extra, I guess, a luster to the tenor range and the bass range of the instrument, where they can just bring that next dimension of sound out. Also, we have what we call the engine of the group, and that are the basses. Just like other instruments, yes. The basses come in E-flat instruments, which are that are over here, and B-flat instruments, which are the lowest instruments. So we get a very homogeneous sound, but we can also get various colors that work through. And so no woodwind instruments, just a different style. Now, you also have to realize that the brass band was really has its origins in England. It is a place where, in the late 19th century, in the early 20th century, where people in factories and mining communities would get together afterwards and get together very much like the way people in America used to go to bowling leagues, right? Or they do go to bowling leagues. It's the same sort of thing. And afterwards, they'd have a beer, and here they would go play instruments, and then they'd go to have a pint. I will not speak for the group. I don't know what they do after rehearsals, but it's a social event. Now, also in England, you have to realize it's kind of a blood sport. It's a highly competitive genre, and it has many of these contests that are just absolutely amazing. And when I listen to the ensembles there, we in America we look up to their sounds as they come through there. Yeah. So just want to give you a little bit about what the sound how this group is put together. Our next work is a contest piece. It is a work that shows in competitions, as are heard, sometimes in the United States and in Europe, where bands compete with each other. These are the major works of the brass band literature. Our next work, this is the first time we're performing this one. It's a wonderful work. You'll hear the theme put forth by Rachel Helmke. We'll be playing the theme at the beginning of the piece, and then we will play variations on it throughout. You will notice that there'll be one little spot where you'll go, is that Bolero, but with a flat tire? And all these little ways of varying the tune as it goes along. Albinus Variations. Thank you very much. We'll take an intermission, and we'll be back with our second half.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge the composer and founder of Charter Oak Brass Band, David Maker. He's sitting right here. Can you please stand up? Thank you very much. Our band manager, Jim Lenve, has a few words for you.
Hi, I'm Jim. I'm the manager of this illustrious group. And I just want to say thank you all for coming. This is a season-ending concert for us, and we've had a lot of fun. We usually start up right around Labor Day and go through this time of year. And it takes a village, like anything else. We are a 501c3, so please keep that in mind. There's a little thing to scan on the back of the program to our website and our information for donating. But I'd like to take a moment here and recognize the people in this group that do lead the group and from an organizational standpoint. That last march was called Movers and Shakers. The significance of the title is that a long time ago, our manager was a guy by the name of Dave Yutzy, fine trombone and tuba player, and he ran the board. And he was looking for a name better than the board. So he decided to call this group of people the Movers and Shakers. So thus, when we had to come up with a title for that last composition, Movers and Shakers just seemed like a fun title. So I'd like the Movers and Shakers to please rise and get a round of applause here. One of the things that's generally not done is you don't get to introduce yourself as a soloist. So our next soloist is, you may have noticed that Dan wasn't conducting the last piece. Some of the band members may have noticed that too. He usually takes his digs at the trombone section, so I can get him back. But Dan is going to play for us a hymn. And in the Salvationist tradition of the Salvation Army, there is a tradition of hymns. Most of what they play are hymns. And if you listen to some of these modern arrangements, you'd say, well, that's a very contemporary sounding piece. But at its heart and soul is a often ancient Salvationist hymn. So our next tune, featuring Dan Diadio on a number of different cornets up there, is going to be Blessed Assurance. Dan?
He will be playing the B-flat cornet and the E-flat cornet, which is what our E-flat cornetist Sam plays. That's for the higher notes.
return to the contest festival music of the brass band. Our next work is a theme by Purcell Variations, Kenneth Downey, the composer. It's based on a theme of an Anglican hymn, Westminster Abbey. You'll hear an introduction at the beginning of the piece, and then you'll hear this. I'm going to try to take you through a bit of a tour of this piece before we start it, so you can kind of see where the variations go as it works on, right? So then you'll hear, after this introduction, you'll hear this climax highlighted by the suspended cymbal, and it'll take us to that theme, the theme of Westminster Abbey. Once we get to that point, then we're going to get to a jaunty little, playful sort of variation of that melody. Then we will go to a more subtle, more serene variation that is in the style of Erik Satie's Gymnopédie. Then we go to a big band version, a big band variation, followed by a very poignant, very charming little lyrical variation, and then comes up to a finale at the end that is just very rousing. This is Kenneth Downey's Purcell Variations. as I promised, there's something for everyone on this program. And many of us know this song. It's one of the greatest songs from the 1960s, sung originally by Richard Webb. Or is it the worst song? I don't know, because it had many people had covered this tune. Everyone remembers Donna Summer's version of it in the 70s. Yes, you see, yeah, right? And in the early 1980s, a radio station had a survey out and asked its listeners to come up with the worst songs of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And MacArthur Park was on the top of the list as the worst song. But there's something that really touches our heart about this tune. It's about a lost love. You know, it's about a lost love. But those words, MacArthur Park is melting in the dark. All that sweet green icing flowing down. Someone left the cake out in the rain. Can you remember how Richard Harris sang this with all that Shakespearean verve, right? And I think that I can't take it because it took so long to bake it, and I'll never have that recipe again. Remember that? Is it the worst? Is it the best? I hope you enjoy our version of MacArthur Park. This is the first time we're using our new podium. And the Charter Oak Brass Band bought a podium so they could see me. I mean, I think that was kind of like they were just pretending. They're saying, we can see you now. Right. As Jim said, sometimes they look, and so we're working some bugs out. It's all fine. It's all good. I just grabbed it the wrong way. Right. Anyway, thank you so much. Playing here is such a joy for all of us. And I'm so happy that we've had a chance to meet again and to spend a couple hours together and to think about these wonderful things in our life, things such as music, and things that we can always cherish in moments where we can just distract ourselves from the rest of the world and really just embrace the moment. We have one more song for you. Yes, You Can't Stop the Beat from Hairspray. One, two, 3, ah.